Hello lovely people, how are you all today? I hope you are well. You're joining me on a truly foul day. I haven't got my mitts on and I'm just going to put my hands in my hoodie. Yeah, it's a proper grotty day today. The sky is black. There's hardly any light. I've got all the lights on. Lashing rain. There's been a thunder lightning storm rolling around for the last hour or so. Thunder in the winter feels a bit weird to me. So it's the perfect time to curl up with a book. Yay! So a couple of books today. Salt on My Skin by Sarah Kennedy Norquay. And then we'll get to another one. Now, this is something I was talking about earlier in the year, proposing, where as we go into next year, there'll be lots of new books appearing. You've seen a few already, but I'm also going to lift bits of book, I was going to say book reviews, they're more like just book chats, book discussions, thoughts prompted by books from earlier in the year, which folk may have missed because they were buried amongst other chat. And I know that there are people who are coming over to the channel now just for the books, so this is for everybody, but it's books. Yay! So this first one, just to say before we go into it, this was in the summer when, let's just say, my emotions were still really raw and very close to the surface. It was very soon after my sister's death, and this book had been a gift from somebody. So yeah, it was. So I just looking at my notes. Yeah, it was gift. It was the perfect balm. And what was lovely in reading that, it took me to the shelf and it got me picking up this book again. So without further ado, get your swimming coddies on. Let's dive into this lovely book. So to open this parcel and see a book that says Salt on My Skin, I'd been having thoughts of Dorset, just getting down there. It was just perfect. It was perfect timing. I'll tell you briefly about the book because I won't go into too much because I will sob. This is a lass who has had, you know, she's had her own tough times, single mum. She moves to Orkney. I guess when she moves to Orkney, she was living in Cambridge. So for those who don't know, Orkney is one of our quite remote islands. It's off the north coast of Scotland. It's not as remote as Shetland, further out, but it's, you know, it's as part of the UK, it's one of the most remote places you can get to. She must have gone there when she was about 38, 39. So she leaves Cambridge, she goes to Orkney, starts a new life for herself. 10 years on, and she's 49, she's going to be 50. She makes a bucket list of 49 things she wants to do in that year before she turns 50. And one of them, because she keeps reading about it, seeing about it, is it's all about wild swimming or cold water swimming, however you want to put it. To me, swimming, there's only two ways to swim. You either swim in a chlorinated pool indoors, but to me, if I talk about swimming, I mean swimming in the sea or in a river or a lake. Lakes are too cold. But for me, when I talk about swimming, I mean swimming in salt water, swimming in the briny stuff. So that's what she's kind of been thinking about it for ages. And then at the end, so this book is written in 2019. There's a blog and Instagram, I'll tell you about that too in a second, because I'm pretty sure, I know a load of you want to look it up. So the book starts in January 2019 and goes into January of 2020. But at the end of 2018, here we go again. Her best friend on the island, her best friend dies and she's bereft, but also her mum, her parents have ended up moving to Orkney too. They're not Orcadians, but they all end up living there. Her mum, who must be around about 80, late 70s, I think she says her dad is 80, I think she mentions him being 81 or 82. It's about 80. Her mum gets diagnosed with dementia. So she has this grief about her friend, this grief about knowing she's going to start losing her mum. Not because her mum's going to die yet, but she's going to start losing her mum. And she just says, you know, one day she says, sod it, I'm going to do that swim. I mean, what a time to start doing outdoor swimming. January. She's got a wetsuit. She starts in a wetsuit. And she meets up with a group of women. She's kind of petrified. Anyway, she does it. She goes for her first wild, cold water, open, whatever, swim. And she loves it. And she quickly becomes, as she says herself, she becomes an addict. This simple act of getting into water, yeah, it's cold. This simple act of getting into water, being in the water. Now, she swims. When I get in water, I tend not to swim. I don't bother swimming. I just get in. I bob, I float, I tread water. I like kind of diving down. I don't mean diving off something into water, but when I'm in the water, I like to kind of nose dive down and see what I can find down there. But yeah, she quickly becomes addicted. Starts an Instagram. What I will do is, in the description underneath my video here, I'll put the details of her social media stuff, because she starts blogging about it. She Instagrams her pictures, and it was from the back of that all of her viewers or whatever, all the people that was connecting on social media were saying, write a book, write a book, write a book. You need to write a book about this. So this charts that first year of her becoming a wild swimmer. It goes by the month. And of course, it charts how things are going with her mum. The start, at the very start of the book, when she's talking about her friend Fiona, I mean, I found it almost unbearable to read to begin with. I don't know what this book. Okay, so I should say that straight away as a reviewer of this book. I'm obviously reading it in a highly emotional state. I'm a mess. So two things. One, I'm recently bereaved, and two, I love wild swimming. So of course I'm going to love it. I mean, Sarah, thank you. What a perfect book to choose for me. Thing is, all the time I was reading it, I was thinking, oh, when I finish it, I'll send it to sis. Oh yeah, I don't have a sis anymore. I mean, I do in here, but yeah. So I think it's a really quick read. It's only little. I read it in one sitting. Sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, and as one of the reviewers on the back said, sometimes both on the same page. It's lovely, and I think more than anything, as I was reading it, as I was saying, I've been thinking so much about Dorset, and then my sister's picture for this month with the sea fret, and I just think it's like our planets aligning, are the stars aligning, is something happening here that's maybe beyond my control, but is a massive message. I'm trying to, although I'm trying to plan my life, I'm also trying to intuit it too. I'm trying to feel what's right rather than trying to just think about what's right. I'm very much a thinker. I am very cerebral. I'm a planner. I'm thoughtful. I'm a reflector. But I am also that kind of heart and guts kind of person. And I think maybe in the last few years I've got too much in here, and maybe I need to get back into my intuition and my guts, and maybe the sirens are calling me to the beach. Anyway, Sarah, thank you so much. Sorry, I should say as well, it is, have I just confused? No, it is Sarah who sent it to me. Sorry, I thought I got confused then, because the author is Sarah. Sarah Kennedy, I don't know how you pronounce it, surname, Norquay. So she, having moved to Orkney, she ends up getting married for the second time. The first husband left her, which is why she's a bit of a mess in Cambridge. But she's married to an Orcadian fisherman. Yay! Lovely, 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 lovely. Really inspiring me to get back in the water. And in fact, after I finished reading it, I grabbed this book, which you'll have seen behind me on the shelf numerous times. Lovely book by Kate Rue. When this book came out, I think it was about 1997, I was really angry with her because she gives details of how to get to one of my favourite secret wild swimming places. I'll never forgive you, Kate Rue. But it's a lovely book because, oh, I mean, it's just full of these lush pictures of swimming. Look at that, there, under the water. My camera won't be able to focus. Let me see if I can find you a lovely picture. I'm going to find the picture of my secret swimming place because it's not a secret anymore. Actually, I don't think I can manage to get down the cliff anymore because it's a very, very steep climb down. I know it's in here somewhere, hang on. But isn't that, I love that picture. Doesn't that sum up sea swimming? Just the glee on the face, bobbing around in the water. I know it's right at the beginning somewhere. Where have you gone? Oh, I can't find it. Maybe that's the book is telling me, don't give it away, Vivi. Don't tell them where you go. Sorry, I'm gonna just indulge me 2 more seconds. If I can't find it in the next couple of flicks, we'll give up. I want to find it. I want to find it. Did I imagine it? God, am I going to lally? Going to late. Anyway, so yeah, it's a book I often pull off the shelf just because I want to look at pictures of people bobbing in the sea. So yeah, lovely. I'll put the so she's got an Instagram page where she posts pictures of her and her gang. Sometimes she swims alone. Obviously, wild swimming on your own, be really, really careful. Never swim out of your depth. That's her rule as well. It's my rule. So if I'm swimming and I'm on my own, like I said, I don't really swim, I bob. I always want to be able to touch the floor. Know exactly where you are in terms of, you need to know the tides, the rips, all of those kind of things. Generally better for wild swimming, go in a group. It's just the most perfect read for me in that moment. So lovely. And of course, follow it, having read the book and getting myself all excited about wild swimming again, and, you know, thinking, oh, you know, it's been 4 years, come on, it's time to put the swimming costume back on. I don't care what I look like, I really want to get in the water, and I did. So I can't remember the exact date that I read the book, but it was about 6 weeks later. I was down in Dorset and I had myself a good few swims in the brine, and it was gorgeous. It was so wonderful. So a book which worked a bit of magic on me. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, the next book, oh, my goodness me, it's in my top 5 of the year. I'm going to talk about, excuse me, as we get right to the end of the year, amongst other things I'm going to be chatting about, I'm going to share with you my book of the year. Yay, book of the year. So one of the reasons I wanted to share this with you again, well, for those who haven't seen it, but share it again, is because it's now being made, or it has been made into a film. And I thought I wanted to encourage folk to read the book maybe before going and watching the film. I don't know what the film is going to be like. Directed by George Clooney. I think he's quite sensitive in his work, so hopefully he'll do it justice. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, never mind the film, here's the book. But oh my goodness, this book, what a corker. It's an absolute corker. I'm boiling. It's because I've got the windows shut again because of traffic noise. Anyway, so this book was sent to me by my dear friend Jan. Hi Jan, she lives over on Vashon Island, so Seattle area. She messaged me back in, I think it was about March, to say, she said, oh, I'm reading this great book. I think she was about a third of the way through it at the time. She said, oh my goodness, I think it's going to be right up your street. Gave me a brief outline and I said, oh my goodness, that sounds so much like my kind of book. A few days later, the postman arrived with a book. So I immediately messaged her to say, oh my goodness, you finished that and got it posted to me so quickly. She said, I haven't finished my copy. I found another copy to send to you. She still hasn't finished her copy, and I don't know how, because I think I read this in a couple of days. I couldn't put it down. I forced myself. Let's say I started on the Tuesday. On Tuesday, well, about 2, 3 in the morning on Wednesday morning, I forced myself to put it down and then finished it the next day. And it's about 400 pages, so it's not a short book. I really didn't want to put it down. What is it, Vivi? What is it? Stop talking about it and tell us what it is. This book is called... Oh, let me see so I can see it as well. The Boys in the Boat by Daniel James Brown. There we go. What's the subtitle? You can read it and I can't. 9 Americans and their epic quest for gold at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Okay, please don't turn off and don't tune out. Let me say right from the outset, yes, it's about rowing and the men's 8. But you don't have to be a rowing, you know, fan, aficionado. You don't have to know anything about rowing to enjoy this book. I only ever really watched rowing at the Olympics. When I lived in West London, I sometimes would go down onto the Thames, very close to where I lived. There are a number of the boat houses, the row clubs. So whenever you see the university boat race that some of you overseas may have seen as well, when Oxford and Cambridge compete in April every year on the Thames, they go past a number of the boat houses. So I'd sometimes go down and watch the guys and girls rowing. But it's by no means my, like, ooh, sport. The reason I'm mentioning that is because I think it's a cracking book, even if you're not particularly into sport. It's a really beautiful book and actually at times really so moving. I cried quite a few times reading it. So the premise of it, they're almost sort of 3 stories sort of running in parallel through this book, the whole way through the book. Yes, it's about this crew of 8 who are hoping to represent America in the 36 Olympics. I think one of the reasons that Jan first picked it up is because all of this is for the crew at Washington University in Seattle. So yes, it is about that, but it's so much more. So the 3 stories that are running parallel, most of the book takes place from 1930 to 1936. It starts with these young men first going to university in their first year at uni, trying out for row club, and how they progress in it. And it ends, sort of, in 1936 with that final at the Olympics. We know the ending. We know the ending, but it doesn't spoil the book at all. So that's kind of the body of the book. So we get a lot of the lives of the university life, how they go each year, and there are races every year. They race California. There's a lot of kind of class stuff in there about East versus West in America, with the Eastern universities being, you know, the posh ones, the moneyed ones, the Yales, the Harvards, the Princetons. It's all like, ooh. Whereas these kind of Washington boys and the California boys are being seen as a bit like, well, you're not serious. So there's all that. But the focus of the entire book is one particular young man in that crew. And it's his story, essentially, that we're following. And that's why, I mean, you don't really have to be into the rowing to be into this book. It's a biography of this young man. And actually, I read it, when did I finish it? I can't remember when I finished it, but I've now forgotten his name and I want it. Joe, that's it, of course. So this young man, Joe Rance, it's his biography, really. And it just happens that that period of 30 to 36 is most intensely looked at in the book. God, it's a hard read in places. So we go back to his childhood, and I made some notes, so excuse me looking at my own notes. It was a little while ago. I've got to say, I put this book down when I finished it. I finished it one night in the bathtub on my second day of reading. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I was having a bath. I had tears rolling down my cheeks at the end because I'd fallen in love with all eight of the boys in that boat. I've got to say, I know I'm going all over. I had a really strong reaction to this book, but Daniel James Brown, what a brilliant biographer, what a fantastic writer of other people's stories, because we get to the end of the book, it's 1936, it's the Olympics, the race happens. And then there's a little afterword chapter in which he tells us what all the guys then go on to do with their lives. And it gets right to the end and he catches us up on, you know, this one died in 2000 and that one died in 1998 and that one died really young, or, you know, or how they got through the war, because of course the war comes. And by the end, I felt like I knew all these characters, especially Joe Rance, the central one. I felt I knew them so well. I'd fallen completely in love with them all. I didn't want to let go of any of them. I wanted to keep hearing about their lives. I wanted to stay in their lives in the book. So yeah, like I said, I was in the bath, the tears rolling down my cheeks. I didn't want them to, you know, because one minute I'm reading about these healthy, vital, strong young men in 1936, and the next thing it's 1996 and they're old men and they're dying, and it's like, no, I want them to keep going. Anyway, jump to the end, sorry. So back to Joe Rance. So he must have been born in, I wish I'd written it down, maybe 1916 or something. So the book, so never mind the rowing, it's covering US history, that really difficult time in US history, the Depression, the Dust Bowl. His mother dies when he's really quite young, I think he's 4, he ends up with a stepmother, they become a bit itinerant, they move here, they're looking for work, dirt poor. And then at the age of 15, and I won't really go into it in case you want to read it, but there's such a shockingly awful moment in his life that for a modern reader, it just seems unimaginable to us. To anyone who's a parent, it will be unimaginable. In a nutshell, he gets abandoned. He comes home from school one day, the family have upped, they're off to try and start a new life somewhere else. But sorry lad, there's no room for you. You're going to have to just survive on your own. It's shocking. But he does, somehow he does, and he gets himself to the uni and he gets himself into the boat crew. So it's Joe's life that we're following, that's the central theme of the book. And around it massively is his crew club colleagues and friends. God, he's a survivor, that kid, that young man. But of course, also running parallel, and again it's brilliant writing from Daniel James Brown, because just when you're getting really happy, you're like, oh, he's going to make crew in the second year, oh yeah, he's doing really, really well, then bang, the writer hits us with that reality and that truth again of the political life around that these guys are all living through, both the Depression in America and the Dust Bowl and all that again, but the rise of Nazism. And the 36 Olympics is going to be in Berlin. This is, Hitler is going to try and showboat. So all the way through, as we go through the years from 30 to 36, there are moments in each chapter where he dips us back into German history and what was happening and that rise of the Nazis. And obviously it's horrible. But also in some of them, he sort of jumps forward. He sort of, it might be 1934 and something's going on, but of course we have the benefit of hindsight. We know what that led to, you know, 6-8 years later, and that comes up in the book as well. So that's really hard. There are times when this is a hard read because, you know, the depression in America, and then, God, the Nazi stuff, and it's like, oh. But trust me, it is an incredibly hopeful, optimistic, powerful book. And what's wonderful is, with the way it's written, the whole book, you can feel that pace. Not only is the pace being driven on, but you can feel a gathering pace, and it's getting more and more exciting, and it's like, oh, you know, it's the book itself is like that race. We start off and we set a steady rhythm. We've got a stroke rate of 36, and as we go through the book, the stroke rate, the narrative, the stroke rate is rising and rising and rising, obviously to that denouement of the final at the Olympics. So it's brilliantly written from that point of view, that it has an inner pace that, and that's why I couldn't put it down. I really struggled that first night to put it down, because there's such a momentum in the narrative, whether I wanted to or not, I was being pulled along by this thing. But ultimately, and again, this is why he's such a clever writer, in the same way that he drops into each chapter this reminder of how horrific the Nazis were and that whole movement, there are also moments that drop in that, oh, they just floored me so many times. We're reminded of the incredible fragility of this young man. Yeah, he's a survivor. He's scrapped and he's fought and he's hanging in there. And he might have put up something of an exterior, but Daniel Brown doesn't let us forget that inside there's this, I'm going to get upset talking about it, this really hurt soul, this young boy who has learned really early on in his life, don't love anyone, don't trust anyone, just don't. He's so fragile. What's beautiful is we kind of, with all the capture, we see him growing and learning to make bonds with people, learning to trust again, and that's gorgeous. And there's a moment where, I'll just say very briefly, it's I won't do it much justice, but there's a moment when the coach has a lot of faith in him, realises, you know, he's really got something, but somehow he's just not connecting. He's not connecting with the other guys in the boat. And they have a boat builder, and at the time he's the world's most revered builder of these racing 8-man or 8-woman boats. I'm not sure whether women were racing at that point in the Olympics, quite probably not. But he's the most revered boat builder at that time. Of course, they're wooden boats. And there's something about this man. There's something almost mystical about him. So the coach approaches, and the boat builder, although he builds boats for teams all over the world, or all over the country, I think he also builds, he's an Englishman originally, and I think he still builds boats, or at that point was building boats for Oxford and Cambridge still. but he's based out of their boathouse. He's got his workshop upstairs. So the coach says to him, I just can't connect with this young man. Will you have a word with him? And his way of doing it, he's noticed, so the boat builder has noticed that young Joe, you know, has a little look around his workshop sometimes. And one day he says to him, you know, come on in, let me show you what I'm doing. And there follows this most beautiful, it's only on, lasts a couple of pages, it's a handful of paragraphs. But he talks about the boat builder talks about his relationship with the wood. It's 2 pages of poetry. It's beautiful, it's sublime. And even as I was reading it, gosh, I was feeling something. I don't know what it was, but I was feeling something. And throughout the course of that interaction between them both, there's a moment where he somehow starts the process of unlocking this young man. So beautiful. Wow, you know what? It was I found it a truly powerful, moving book. Beautifully written, cleverly written, intelligently written, with so in tune with those really deep emotions, those emotions that run quietly like a river in the night. It's just stunning. I can't recommend it enough. I put it down. Did I say this a minute ago? I don't know. I'm all over the place now. I'm back in the book. I'm suddenly back in the book. Like I said, I finished it in the bath. I was crying. There's quiet tears running down my cheeks. I put the book down and I thought, gosh, how silly. But then I thought, no, it's not silly. That's the power of good writing, is to move us. And it's, you know, and I'm an empath. I'm going to feel for days and days and days afterwards. I couldn't get out of my head. It kept going through my head. I can see in my head, I could see Joe as a young man. I could see Joe as the older man. I could see the boathouse. I could see the whole crew. Could not stop thinking about it. And I had a pile of books next to the bed, my next sort of stack of books, and night after night after night I'd pick up, I go, no, I don't fancy it. What's the next one in the pile? And I had a pile of about 10 books, and I was like, I don't fancy it, no, don't fancy it. Because this book needed time to settle. Yeah. Beautiful, magnificent. Oh, there we go, on the front, the Seattle Times, their quote, breathtaking. It truly was. If you can get hold of a copy, please do, give it a go. And don't worry if you're not really into rowing. I would say by the end you might be. But it's, you know, it's so much more. It's history. It's world history in that moment. But also, more than anything, it's the tale of a really, really extraordinary young man. And it's the tale of how, despite the worst start in life, it doesn't mean that one has to turn out to be a bitter, nasty person. One can turn out to be a most glorious, wonderful individual. Ah, right, I'm going to call it a day now, because I actually want to go off and wallow in this again for a moment and get a bit weepy, because it's not sad tears, it's tears of, it's for joy, it's for beauty, it's for the human soul surviving. So I hope you'll agree, 2 really, really lovely books. What great books, for different reasons, in different moments, but I thoroughly enjoyed both of them. And I know that quite a few of you then went on to either buy a copy, borrow a copy of, some of you did both, some of you one or the other, whatever. I know that some of you did then go on to read them. I'd love to know what you think. So since those original videos were a few months ago, let me know in the comments below what you thought of them, having subsequently read them. Yay, reading time. That's pretty much it for this video. just to say that The Boys in the Boat, you know, it really did have a huge impact on me, and it's still with me. It's still resonating, and yeah, it's still going around and around up here, and it's quite a few months now since I read it, but it's so vivid in my mind still. I think that says a huge amount about a book. If it's made it to my book of the year, who knows? We'll have one final discussion of it before the year is out, and then we can tuck into a whole load of new books next year. I've got a massive, well, not a massive stack. I've got now, I was down to about 10 unread books on my shelf. A combination of some gifts, some recent purchases, some recent loans. I've got about, I don't know, 25 books on my shelf unread, and that will keep me going until the next reading season next year, or the end of next year. Anyway, I'm waffling now. I hope you enjoyed those. I hope that will inspire you to read one or the other or both of them, and if not those two, hopefully it'll just inspire you to pick up a book and read and get yourself lost in another world. For now though, please look after yourselves. Happy snugging with your books. Cheerio.